friends, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian, and I'm streaming to you from beautiful Budapest in Central Europe. I hope everybody is having a good week, staying healthy, staying strong, and productive. This is a members chat class. Of course, everybody is welcome to watch, and we will have another class coming up in 90 minutes where everybody can join the chat. To become a member of our channel, simply click the join button beside the subscribe button. Hi, Jainil. Hi, Abhishek. In this class, we are looking at an IELTS Task 1 writing, and we will be putting together a Band 9 line graph example essay. Of course, this lesson is presented to you by aehelp.com for academic IELTS success. Definitely visit us there. Lots of videos, materials, sample, task 1, task 2, essays. You can get help with writing and editing. Also, for general IELTS, check us out at gieltshelp.com. That's generalieltshelp.com, where again, we have loads and loads of materials for you. Hi, Dr. Krishna. Hi, Preeti. Dr. Krishna, did you get your exam results yet, or are you still waiting? This is our academic IELTS website here with the blue background. You can click these big red buttons to join our premium packages there. Get access to all of the goodies that will help you improve your English and increase your band scores. This is our general IELTS website with the green background here. You can click that big red button and join us there. We are official British Council IELTS registration centers online, so if you would like to register for your exam in Saudi Arabia, we can actually register you for your next IELTS test as well, so we can help you with that. Let us know. And if you have questions ever about our products or the exam, send me an email at adrian@aehelp.com. All right, everyone, so let's have a look at today's Task 1 writing question. Here we go. First step is always just to read the question really carefully, making sure that you understand exactly what it is. All right. So you did get it. Oh, wow, you just missed it by half a band in the writing, Dr. Krishna. How did that happen? So close. Listening, reading, obviously very strong. Speaking and writing, they need to improve. Dr. Krishna, I really recommend using the writing and editing services on our website just even once to identify what's going on, why your scores aren't as high as they could be, because I have a feeling they could be higher. Okay. Your writing score seems a little bit low from what I've seen you send us, by the way. Okay. So let's get to writing. Talking about writing. Here we go. Let's look at the question. You should spend about 20 minutes on this task. The following chart shows the change in the weight of coffee exports in 3 different countries for a given number of years. Report the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Okay, so it's some kind of a chart. It's showing us the change in the weight of coffee exports. So that means coffee that is going out of the country. And then in 3 different countries, so what countries could those be? And then for some years, what years could those be? So, of course, as many of you know, we want to write an overview for this. And the overview should have a paraphrase of the question with details, plus, of course, the most observable feature or features. Okay, depends what we will see. So, when you read the question, you can kind of, when you practice, you already know that where you can give details are, for example, here. Okay, so the following chart, what kind of chart? Line chart, bar chart, pie chart. Change in the weight of coffee exports in 3 different countries. Okay, what 3 countries, right? given number of years. What years are we talking about here? So that's what we can see right away. And then, of course, the change in the weight of coffee. You can also think of what's the measure. Okay, so kilograms, tons, millions of kilograms. So what are we looking at? So that's where we can add in the details. So let's look at the line graph to find those details and then paraphrase this question with those. Okay, all right. So here we go. Here is our chart. So at the top it just says coffee exports. Okay. Now, if the chart is not that clear, that's okay. It's quite a simple chart to remember. Can you read this, members? Is it clear enough to read? So you have Brazil with the dotted line. Okay, so this is the dotted line. This is good vocabulary, by the way. Dotted line is Brazil. Okay, this is the solid line. Okay, the solid line represents Costa Rica. Okay, and then this line, which is called a dashed line, represents Colombia. Okay, so just remember Brazil, Costa Rica, Colombia. Dotted line, solid line, dashed line. And then here we have 2002, 2004. So we have intervals of 2 years. Okay, and leading up to 2012. So that's what we have on our x-axis. Okay, this line is called your x-axis. All right. Now, here on your y-axis, we have 0, and then we have 5, 10, 15, 20, all the way to 25. So these spaces here are intervals of, and then here we have kilograms in millions, okay? Intervals of 5 million kilograms, okay? Now, we might be able to simplify that a little bit so we're not always saying kilograms. We can convert that a little bit for our analysis later on into tons, okay? So how many tons is 5 million kilograms? So you have 5 million, just do the simple math, 6 zeros, right? 1 ton is 1,000 kilograms, so we can take 3 zeros away. So it's 5,000 tons, okay? And it's good to think like that. Everybody following with me so far on this kind of analysis? So here, I just kind of walked you through how I would quickly think about this line graph if I were to analyze, okay? So I would pay attention to the legend. This is the legend here. Okay, that's what that's called. Again, another good word to know. So the legend shows me what the different lines are representing. Then the interpretation or understanding of the x-axis, the y-axis, and maybe some more interpretation here of this weight distribution. Is that clear? Is everybody following me so far? So everybody's good on what's going on here? So far, so good? Or have I lost everybody in this description of the line graph? Now, of course, line graphs are used to show change over time, right? So that's another good point to remember, because different kinds of graphs are used for different purposes. So line graphs, good. Okay, thank you, Preeti. Thanks, Abhishek. Thanks, Begjan. Everybody's on board. So line graphs are used to show change over time. And because line graphs are used to show change over time, okay, what kind of grammar do you think will be useful in this type of graph. So in a line graph, okay? So line graphs are used to compare several independent variables on the x and y axis, the dependent variables, right? As their correlation and change over time. Okay. Therefore, what kind of grammar are we going to use? So Beckchen says past simple, depending on time. Yeah, we can use some past simple. So therefore, some useful grammar to keep in mind. Of course, depending on the time, are continuous, okay, or progressive, past and present perfect, okay? So simple past, Beckchen, yes, but that's true for most types, okay? So think about present and past perfect and the continuous and progressive forms, okay? Consider those when you're writing about line graphs for sure. All right, so let's write the overview here. Here's the original question. The following chart shows the change in the weight of coffee exports in 3 different countries for a given number of years. Report the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Okay. Dr. Krishna says the provided line chart illustrates the amount of coffee exports in 3 nations for a decade from 2002 to 2012. As per the legend, dotted, dashed, and solid lines representing Brazil, Colombia, and Costa Rica, not Colorado. Colombia, big exporter of coffee, right? Samuel Sadir says the following line chart depicts the variations of coffee exports by weight, kilograms, in Brazil, Costa Rica, and Colombia from 2002 to 2012 in intervals of 2 years. Very nice, Samuel. I like that. It's even more specific, okay? Absolutely. So that's what I would write as well, okay? So the line chart depicts the change in the weight of coffee exports in Brazil, Colombia, and Costa Rica for a decade between 2002 and 2012 with 2-year intervals. Okay. Now, here I have my paraphrase of the question with some more details, of course. So the line chart depicts the change in the weight of coffee exports in Brazil, Colombia, and Costa Rica for a decade between 2002 and 2012 with 2-year intervals. Now, when you write a sentence like this, members, students, and you're practicing at home, go back and see if you can make it a little bit better, more accurate grammar, more accurate punctuation, information. So that's what you're doing when you're reviewing, okay? So when you review your sentences in your task 1 and task 2, look for corrections to grammar, punctuation, vocabulary, and content. Okay, so these are the 4 kinds of fixes that you should be looking for. Grammar assisting software like Grammarly or Microsoft Word's Grammar Assistant, those can help you a lot, but definitely don't rely on them too much, especially for those higher levels. Okay, have a good meeting, Jainil. We'll see you tomorrow, hopefully, or maybe in the later class. Okay, all right. Here we go. The line chart depicts the change in the weight of coffee exports measured in millions of kilograms per year. In Brazil, Colombia, usually when we list, we put a comma before and as well, and Costa Rica, for a decade between 2002 and 2012 with 2-year intervals. Okay, so there I've added a little bit of content, fixed a little bit of punctuation and grammar. Okay, so now it's even better. Okay, of course in the computer-based exam, it's nice that you can do this more cleanly than if you're doing the paper-based exam. So in that sense, if you have good touch typing skills, computer-based exam can be an advantage. Okay. All right, Abhishek says the given line graph depicts the variations of coffee exports in Brazil, Colombia, and Costa Rica from 2002 to 2012 with 2-year intervals. Yeah, and notice how the 2-year for me here is connected with hyphenation. That's because this becomes an adjective. Right? So the noun is intervals. Okay, this is your noun. And this here is one adjective. Okay, it's like saying red apple. So 2-year intervals. So think about the word form before the noun to figure out whether or not you need this hyphenation. Okay. If you have this kind of a number and then some kind of a noun, which together becomes an adjective, then in most cases you will now use that hyphenation. And this is actually quite recent in the English language. It's over the last, I'd say 30 years, 20, 30 years, where we've started to use a lot more hyphenation in very modern English to create these adjective form of the words. Okay? All right. Good. Natalie, there is a saying in English that goes like this: better late than never. So welcome to the class. You'll catch up here in a moment, all right? Okay, so better late than never. All right, here we go, students. Let's keep going forward. Now we need to identify the most observable feature and then go from there, all right? So it's weird. I know I still get students who say separate the overview with the introduction, but to me, again, that doesn't really make sense. It's unnecessary. You can if you want. It's not the end of the world. All right. So what do we notice? So here we don't really need to pay too much attention to the specific numbers or data just yet. We simply just kind of look at the overall shape of this line graph, and then we can bring about some kind of a statement that's the main overview. So what can we state clearly about these 3 countries and their coffee exports? Okay, what can we clearly state about these 3 countries and their coffee exports? Again, don't overthink this part. So it doesn't have to be most and least. I think there's something that's a little bit more interesting here than most and least. They all export a lot of coffee, that's for sure. I know I've tried all 3 kinds, and I'm not a big coffee drinker myself. But I've definitely had Brazilian, Colombian, and Costa Rican coffee at some point in my life. So Samuel says there is varying levels of growth in these 3 countries. It's not growth. So Samuel, be careful about your word choice. You mean to say like their increase in coffee exports. I kind of get what you're saying, but growth isn't the best word to describe it. Yeah, there's definitely a variation. So we can see there's ups and downs for all three countries. So we can see a down and an up. We can see an up and then a down and an up. And here we can see an up and a down and an up. So there's definitely variance. Samuel says there's an increase. Yeah, okay, I agree with that. Samuel, how would you say that a little bit more clearly? Preeti says fluctuated and an upward trend. Yeah. Hassan says despite fluctuations, coffee exports increased in 3 countries over the period. Very good, Hassan. That's what I noticed as well. Okay, so Hassan, you have the most synonymous observation to myself. Okay, yours is the closest or the most similar with what I see as well. Welcome to our members group on the YouTube channel, Andy. Please join in and comment, and also send me an email to get those exclusive videos. So welcome aboard. Happy to have you. Okay, join in, contribute. Yeah, Hassan, I agree. So despite fluctuation or variation, so we can see that there's all kinds of movement with these. But despite that, here we have these starting points, and then here we have these ending points. So clearly these start-stop points are higher. So there was definitely an increase. I wouldn't say a massive, but definitely an increase in the period. Okay, so fluctuation, but despite fluctuation, overall an increase in the period. I think that's what's most observable. Absolutely. Okay. All right. So let's add that as a main feature. And I think you're pretty much there, Hassan. You can just pretty much verbatim copy that for your overview and you're good to go. Okay, so despite some fluctuation in the amount of coffee exports for all 3 nations, there was an increase overall in the given period. I'm going to make that a little bit smoother. Increase in the given period overall. All right. That's how I'm going to do it. All right, Samuel says at first glance it is evident that over the decade there is varying levels of increase in coffee exports in these countries. Yeah, that's okay, Samuel. Now, you didn't mention that there's variation. I think it is good to say that there's some variation with an overall increase in the period. So Bekjan says, looking at an overall perspective, that's a bit awkward and wordy, Bekjan. So overall, it is apparent. Bekjan, you don't need the looking at, on, or perspective. If you just say overall, that will encompass all of that. So overall, comma, it is apparent that in spite of significant fluctuations, comma, coffee export increased in all 3 countries over the given decade. So Bekjan, you can say that in a lot simpler way. Remember, Bekjan, simple is beautiful. Don't overcomplicate unnecessarily. All right. Hassan says, to begin with, it is clear that despite various fluctuations, the coffee exports increased in the 3 countries over the period. Yeah, that works just fine. Okay, nice. Okay, good. So we're all in agreement there. Now, what should we start with? So let's analyze. So now we're getting into our body paragraph. We're getting into the analysis. We want to have about 6, 7 points of description or explanation, interpretation. And we want to kind of mention those 6 to 7 points of interpretation clearly. Okay? So what would we start with here? Which country? Brazil, Colombia, Costa Rica? What do you think? So I think it makes sense to kind of start with the country. What would you start with? So Abhishek says Colombia because Colombia is the highest early on. Bekjan says Brazil. Personally, so I think you could go with either. I think you could start with Costa Rica. Sorry, the green line here is Costa Rica. I think some of you who are saying Colombia, you should start with Costa Rica. I think that's what you mean, right? Okay, so this is Costa Rica. Okay, and this is Brazil. Okay, and this is Colombia. All right. So I think either Brazil or Costa Rica would be a good one to start with first. Personally, I think that what I would start with is Brazil. Okay. So Brazil is this dotted line that goes like this. All right. And my first point would be Brazil going to here. Okay. So kind of this increase. I wouldn't break here to describe this more rapid increase, but I would go here, and then this part here would be my second point. Okay. Now, importantly, I would definitely mention this here. Okay. So this would be my 1B. This is my 1, and this is my 2. All right. So I think Brazil is a little bit of an easier start. I think if you start with Costa Rica and you explain how Costa Rica decreases and their coffee exports become less than Brazil's or Colombia's in these years, I think that this is a more difficult start. So although it's okay to start with Costa Rica, I think it's more difficult. So sometimes when you have a choice of two possibilities to start your analysis, try to think about which one's the easier start, because usually that will make your essay clearer and a bit easier to write. Okay? Does that make sense? All right. So, Bekjan, what do you mean by mention what type of line graph is it in writing? So what do you mean specifically by that? Can you let me know? You don't, in the IELTS section, you don't need to be like super specific with the naming of the graph. So you don't need to be like vertical bar chart or horizontal bar chart. It's unnecessary, okay? All right. Okay, so again here, I think Brazil's the easier start. Let's talk about that, and then we can get into the more difficult. So Brazil will go 1B to 1 here, and then 2. And then we'll go Costa Rica. Now, whenever you mention a crossover here, you don't need to mention that again. So that's why this will be easier here. And then definitely for Costa Rica, you want to mention this as 3 and 3B. Okay, so these points should be here. And then this would be 4. All right. And then Colombia, you don't need to mention this here because, again, you've mentioned it with 3B. So here would be your 5, this point here. Okay. And then this would be your 6, maybe 6B here if you haven't mentioned this crossover, and then 7. And those would be your points for comparison. So that might be a little bit confusing right now, but that's my logic. Okay, that's how I would label this if I were sitting the exam, and this is the line graph that I got. So it might look a little bit confusing right now, but it will make a lot of sense once we start writing. Okay? All right. Owns, welcome to our group of members. Again, join in. All right, so let's start with the first bit here. So let's start with Brazil, which is at roughly 12 12 million kilograms, which more accurately is 12,000 tons, okay, of coffee exports in 2002, okay, and then very quickly in 2003, surpassing Costa Rica, okay. So here we have 12 million kilograms, okay. This is 2003. This is 2002. And then here by 2008, we have 20, okay. 20 million kilograms. All right. And then at the end, we have 25. Okay. Now here you might want to mention that. It's up to you. You have to know your speed and fluency in writing. There's a slight drop, and this is 2010. Okay. All right. It's a slight drop to about 18 if you want to mention that. Okay. So go ahead, everyone. Write this for Brazil, all right? So 12 million kilograms, 2002. 2003 surpasses Costa Rica. There's a fairly gradual increase in exports. By 2008, it's 20 million kilograms, followed by a slight fluctuation of negative 2 million kilograms over the next 2-year period, but then a rapid increase to 25. Okay. All right. Hi, Owens. Thanks for the shout out. We know you're in here. That's great. All right. So I'm going to write that, and then let's compare. Again, pay attention to reviewing your grammar, your word use, your punctuation as you do this. Okay. I'll leave these kind of numbers up here so we can refer back to them. All right. So this is the analysis, or we can call them the analyses for our points. Okay. All right. So that's my explanation, okay? Because it's not just a description here, but you're explaining. All right. So at closer observation, Brazil started in 2002 by exporting 12 million kilograms of coffee, and a year later surpassing Costa Rica. Brazil gradually continued to increase its exports of this commodity until 2008, by which time it had reached 20 million kilograms. Following a slight drop of 2 million kilograms over the next 2 years, coffee exports boomed until 2012, at which time Brazil became the top exporter of coffee at 25,000 tons. Okay, so that would be my description here. Now, again, if I have enough time, if I'm doing this at home, then I would go over it, just make sure that everything is okay. So simplify, Brazil was exporting 12 million kilograms of coffee in 2002. It reads a little bit better as well. Comma, and a year later surpassed was surpassing Costa Rica. Brazil gradually continued to increase its exports of this commodity until 2008, by which time it had reached 20 million kilograms. All right, okay, and so forth. So you keep reviewing, revising, and making it better. All right. So let's see. Bekjan says, going into more detail, in 2002, Brazil exported around 12,000 tons of coffee, which increased gradually to 20,000 tons, surpassing Costa Rica's figure in 2003. Yeah, Bekjan, be careful, because the 20,000 tons is in 2008, and then you jump back to 2003. Really focus hard, students, to stay linear in your writing. It's very confusing for a reader if you talk about a future time, then you jump back to the past. So Bekjan, keep it linear, okay? So 12,000 tons of coffee, surpassing Costa Rica's figure in 2003, and gradually reaching 20,000 tons, okay? So one step at a time, keep it linear, Bekjan. It will read better. Samuel says, although at second place at 12 million kilograms of coffee exports, Brazil surpassed Costa Rica in 2003, with exports increasing steadily, except between 2008 and 12, to export 25 million grams of coffee by 2012. That's really good, Samuel. Watch your capitalization, million, small m, coffee, small c, okay? I think there's a couple of punctuation errors there as well, Samuel, but overall good. Definitely, once you review and revise, Samuel, it's some really nice writing there. Okay, but you're on the right track. All right. Hassan says the amount of coffee exports in Brazil started from nearly 13 million kilograms in 2002 to approximately 25 million in 2012, with slight decreases in both 2006 and 2010 at about 14 and 18 million kilograms respectively. I would actually mention the decrease, not the decrease that it went down to. Hassan, that's confusing. So at about, let's see, Hassan, what was that? There's only one place where it decreased, Hassan. In 2006, it was still increasing. It might be a little bit awkward to see, but this is not a decrease here. There's only one decrease in Brazil, and that's here. So careful with the data, Hassan. So here, it's about a decrease of 2 million kilograms. So say the amount that it decreased rather than the amount that it decreased to. Okay? All right. Abhishek says, looking into more detail, Brazil exported coffee around 12 million kilograms in 2002, had gradually increased to about 20 million kilograms in 2008. However, after 2010, there was a rapid rise in the number, which touched approximately 25 million kilograms. Kilograms is just kg, Abhishek, in small letters, not capital letters. Moreover, between 2002 and 2002 to 2004, it intersected Costa Rica's solid line. Don't really refer to the lines in that way, Abhishek. It's a little bit awkward. Okay, just describe the data. All right, let's move along here. So let's now talk about Costa Rica. So Costa Rica starts at 15. Okay, so 15 million kilograms. Then, of course, it's decreasing here is where it intersects with Colombia at roughly 9 million kilograms in 2005. Okay, and it reaches its lowest point in 2006 at about 6 million, roughly. Okay, and then from there, there's a fairly steady increase all the way to 2012, at which point it's at 20 million. And, you know, if you like, you could do this point here as well. So in 2007, it surpasses. You could leave that for describing Costa Rica, or you could say, hey, you know what, I'm just going to get through all of these tough sentences here and do the 2007 interesting intersection here between Costa Rica and Colombia at roughly, again, 9 million, let's say, kilograms. Okay? So that's what you're looking to describe. So starts at 15 million, it's the highest. There's a gradual or a steady decrease in the amount of coffee exports. We don't need to talk about that because we already discussed it. So we talk about this point here in 2005, 2006, and 2007, where it goes from 9 to 6 back to 9. Okay? And at both of those points, crossing over with the amount of exports coming out of Colombia. All right? Oas, good to see you contributing. All right, so Oas says it is clear that Brazil coffee export was 12 million kilograms in 2002, then increased instantly to reach 20 million kilograms in 2008. Not instantly, Oas, but steadily. Instantly means like right away, and that's awkward when you're talking about years and years of time frame. So increased steadily to reach 20 million kilograms in 2008, then dropped slightly by 2010, and again until 2012, it increased, or it boomed to 25 million kilograms. So, it's not bad. Careful with your word choice, okay? Focus on a little bit more dynamic use of vocabulary so you have some more clarity there of what's actually happening. Okay, line graphs are a little bit tricky like this, but don't worry about it. With practice, you'll get it. Okay, all right. Okay, so before I lose my thoughts as well, let's get into describing the second point. All right, so All right. So that is my description for Costa Rica. Okay. So here we go with Costa Rica. So even though Costa Rica had the most coffee exporting in 2002 at 15,000 tons, this volume steadily decreased, falling below not only Brazil in 2003, but also below Colombia in 2005 until reaching an all-time low of 6,000 tons in 2006. From that time, coffee exports rose steadily, overtaking Colombia in 2007 at 9 million kilograms and reaching a staggering 20,000 tons by the end of the period. All right, so that's your clear and concise interpretation of that. Okay, and again, if I'm doing this at home, I'm reviewing and fixing. All right. Andy, nice to see you contributing. Andy says Costa Rica had the highest export in 2002, about 15 million kilograms, and declined markedly until 2006 to approximately 6 million kilograms. Yeah. Andy, don't use the brackets. Okay. Students overuse brackets in these. Just use a comma. Okay. So until 2006, comma, approximately 6 million kilograms. And declined markedly because it's in the past, the decline. Right, Andy? So careful with your verb tense as well. All right. After a year, the exports increased moderately until 2012. It's not a moderate increase, Andy. Careful with that because it's moving from roughly 6 all the way to 20. So it's triple, right? Be really careful with that, students. So you have 6 here, and then you have 20 here. That's a multiplier of times 3.3, right? So that's not subtle. Okay, that's not moderate. That's significant, to say the least, right? So steady, significant are better words to use for that, all right? But otherwise, it's good, Andy. It's a good start. Okay. All right. Abhishek says, moving forward, Costa Rica started the highest number of coffee exports with 15,000 tons in 2002, but later there was a sharp decrease until 2006. Students use until instead of till. Till is a little bit colloquial. Yeah, dramatic, it's borderline, Andy. I mean, dramatically would be like 6 to 100, okay? 6 to 20 is more kind of significant or notable, all right? So for this, I would say notable or significant or staggering, dramatic. I use staggering, but dramatic is maybe even more so. It would be okay, Andy. Dramatic would be okay, but careful with that one, okay? Dramatic is, when something is dramatic, Andy, it's like, wow, it's like, whoa, like that, right? That's what you have to imagine, okay? 6 to 20 over the course of 6 years, it's kind of a whoa, so it's kind of a dramatic, I suppose. I definitely wouldn't take band scores for that. So, Andy, it's not like you're going to lose a whole bunch of band scores for using the word dramatically there, all right? Okay. Sandeep Bilga says, in 2002, the highest amount of coffee produced by Costa Rica, and the percentage was 15 kilograms in millions. After 2 years, it decreased to around 9 kilogram millions. And then in 2006, the amount of coffee was steadily inclined to nearly 6 kilogram in millions. 6 million kilograms. So Sandeep, careful with your word order, okay? Your word order is what you really have to work on. So 15 million kilograms or 15,000 tons, it's a little bit easier to interpret. And careful with your word choice, Sandeep. It's not a percentage, Okay, there are no percentages here. It's just clearly showing the weight of exports. If you use the word percentage, it's very confusing because the reader, they're going, what percent? What are we talking about here? What percentages? There are no percentages here. Okay. Okay, everyone. So we have one more here. We have Colombia. Okay. I'm just going to throw this up here and then challenge you with the summary. So Colombia starts at 5 in 2002. It reaches a high in 2006. And then there's definitely a sharp decrease to 2008, at which it's just about 2 million kilograms in 2008. And then there's a sharp increase to 15 million. I think just the world started to drink a lot more coffee. Kilograms in the population too, right? In 2012. Okay, so I'm going to write this up. You can do the same and then compare as we go. So here we go. All right. Okay, so Colombia exported just 5,000 tons of coffee at the beginning of the period, but this significantly increased until 2006 to over 11 million kilograms. Then there was a drastic drop over the next, I think it was 2 years. Yeah, over the next 2 years. To just 2,000 tons. From that time, over the next 4 years, from 2008 to 2012, over the next 4 years, Colombia increased its coffee export by nearly a factor of 8-fold to 15,000 tons in 2012. All right, so that's my last assessment there. Now, it's quite lengthy, and again, I'm sure that we're at about 200 words already. So at this point, you can stop, and if you've run out of time, then don't write a summary. If you have a minute, maybe write a summary to get that Band 9 score. I'll challenge everyone to write the summary on their own. Okay, and I will post this on our YouTube community posts board. Okay, you'll see it there. So here it is one more time. Colombia exported just 5,000 tons of coffee at the beginning of the period, but this significantly increased until 2006 to over 11 million. Then there was a drastic drop over the next 2 years to just 2,000 tons. From that time, over the next 4 years, Colombia increased its coffee export by nearly a factor of 8-fold to 15,000 tons in 2012. Okay, all right. So again, students, I'm showing you very high band essays here. This is what you want to practice. To do this, you want to revise and review for grammar, for vocabulary, for content, and for punctuation. Okay, and I will definitely post this for everyone. So for homework, try the summary. Okay, take a look at the video again at the line graph, see what you would come up with. For the summary, it should only be about one sentence here. And then coming up in 30 minutes, I will host another class that will be reading a brand new reading passage for everyone, okay? Welcome new members, and it's really nice to see some new people contributing in the chat as well. I love seeing some fresh content there, some fresh ideas, so keep that up. All right, everyone, for lots more help to get all our HD videos, our practice exams, interactive courses, applications, go to our websites, aehelp.com, click the big red button, join the premium package, or do the same for general IELTS at gieltshelp.com. I'm Adrian. I'm just signing out for half an hour, and then I will be back with some reading. Bye for now.